in here. Yeah, so I imagine Eddie, it's started getting pretty hot down there. And
surprisingly, the mornings are still like in the 60s and 70s,
oh wow,
which for us is beautiful weather. It's still kind of good for a run or a ride. But come about 11 a.m. it's starting to get a little warm. So I'll take these cool mornings as long as possible. I'm stoked.
What part of Arizona are you in?
I live in Phoenix.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Technically, it would be North Phoenix, but yeah. Phoenix. So normally at this point, we'd be talking about how many 100-degree days we've had in a row, and I think we've had maybe one day this year of 100. So I'm happy about that. That's for sure.
Yeah. Do you get used to that kind of heat?
No. You're okay with it at the beginning, and then come about end of August, September, you're kind of like, okay, man, I'm kind of done with this. Because there's a point where even the mornings are really hot. Once the monsoon season kicks in, it's 85 in the morning with 80% humidity, and then there's no real relief of heat outside, and I think hence why a lot of Arizonans, a lot of Phoenicians will go to San Diego. You ask anybody who lives in San Diego, they're like, oh yeah, the Phoenicians are coming to town. It's like the whole month of July, like the Arizonans just invade San Diego for that cooler weather, But yeah, I mean, you can never shovel sunshine, so I'm not really going to complain.
Right.
That's right. And so Howard, Eddie is also he's a big athlete, and so he does competitions. And so Eddie, tell us about your competitions that you do.
Yeah, so this year I've been a little on the IR. I had a fractured calcaneus, which is a fracture in the heel. So imagine it's like, here's your heel bone, and it's like kind of right between the Achilles and the heel. So I really haven't done much this year. But I started dabbling in some ultra trail running. I did some Spartan ultras last year, and I have quite the resume of obstacle course racing. I've completed in the world championships. I've had, 35 of my last 38 races I've podiumed. Trail running, obstacle course races. So I kind of took it relatively serious. It was just kind of like a weird thing. I did a Spartan race in Seattle, and I failed 6 obstacles in a row and had to do 180 burpees. And it was my second Spartan I did, and I finished, and I told my wife, I was like, this was some of the most fun I've ever had. And then it just kind of kicked it re-sparked my desire to compete again. I used to be really big into track and field when I was really young, and so I took it very seriously. And yeah, I was second in the world in Spartan age group a few years back, and competed in Toronto for the obstacle course world championships, which was a lot of fun. Podiums up the wazoo. It's been quite it's been good for the health reasons, because as we get older, especially once we get over the age of 40, we start losing muscle mass. And so it just gave me a motivation to get into the gym and start lifting weights, because I was really never much of the gym kind of guy. And so it's been a good thing. And I got my wife into it, which is really hilarious. She thought I was nuts, didn't want nothing to do with it. And then all of a sudden she did her first obstacle course race. She was like, this is amazing. And totally got the bug too. So it's something that we do together. And she's quite the competitor as well. I say her competitive drive is greater than mine. She's super competitive. But yeah, and we've gone to some really cool places, gone all over the country doing these races. And I'm looking forward to heading down into Mexico and competing down there and just going.
That's great.
Places. So yeah.
So are you healing up, Eddie? I mean, is your heel healing up? Yeah,
the heel is healing. I had a little bit of a setback, had a pedal smash to the back of my heel mountain biking, and I thought I re-broke it. So the doc was like, we need to get your MRI again and go through all that stuff. So once I got that, slowly getting back into running and actually finally incorporating some speed work, which is something I really enjoy doing. And yeah, so I think at this point I would already had, normally my race season is like, November to May. And obviously it didn't happen because looking back at my timeline, I think I had actually fractured my heel in September last year.
Oh,
I just
wow.
didn't really know. So the last like month, I've been starting to run a little bit more and feeling a lot healthier. Shedded some of those PT weight off, which was kind of good.
Yeah.
So yeah, the heel is healed. But now that we're in, downhill season for mountain biking, I don't really care to compete much. I care to go up to the ski slopes and basically do skiing for mountain biking now. So, so I'll actually be heading up to Durango next week, end of next week. I have a friend of mine, my friend who has the condo in Purgatory. He's like, hey man, you want to come and help install some washer and dryer with me? I'm like, yeah, I could do that. So I'll go up next week, and then I'll be up in the first week of July. I have a friend of mine competing in the Big Mountain Enduro race. So I'm going to go be his race crew. I won't be doing that one again. That was probably one of the most humbling races I've ever done in my life.
Oh,
doing that Big Mountain Enduro.
crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, we're about at the top of the hour here, so I'm gonna go ahead and just get this ready to kick off here. See if I can get this to the right size. So it looks good on the screen. All right, perfect. And then the next thing is I'm just going to start the multicast and we'll be off to the races here. All right, great. All right, welcome everyone. I'm going to invite everyone to the Rewards Mastermind. We're here, we're going to be talking about financial educations and strategies for really helping employees thrive during this difficult economic times. So as everyone knows here that have joined us on the Rewards Mastermind in the past, we're a mastermind of leaders dedicated to creating workplaces where people thrive and employers reward and customers love. In general, we're trying to increase the overall profession and total rewards. And part of that is not just the heads down and the strategy and the spreadsheets and the data analytics that we do as professionals, but also ensuring that our programs have traction. And that is the reason why I'm having our special guest here today. But before we get there, I want to make sure that I introduce ourselves. I have Howard Niswitz here with us, and Howard is a rewards and system strategist. He has a long history in working with some of these large companies out there, such as Barclays and Citigroup, JP Morgan. And Howard helps practitioners move away from spreadsheets, their dependence on spreadsheets as a comp practitioner, and starting to look at those systems that are so important to have in place that we can leverage in our organizations to be more impactful as professionals. I myself, I'm the founder of CompTeam, have over 25 years of comp experience, and Howard and I used to work back in the day at Barclays together, and since then I've spent time developing CompTeam over the past 10 years that focus on small to mid-sized companies. But our expert contributor today, and who I'm really excited to talk with, is Eddie Diaz. He's a good friend and the owner of Diaz Strategy and Insurance and Financial Solutions. And so Eddie is down in the warm environment of Arizona, the Phoenix, and enjoys all the outdoor activities there, and runs his practice and has a huge impact on all of his clients. And I can attest to that myself. So thank you, Eddie, for joining us today. Can you just tell us a little bit, Eddie, about how you got into helping people with their financials, helping companies develop strategies around those of financial strategies that help their employees and so forth. What started your passion there?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this, and I'm really excited about this conversation. Yeah, so when I was in college, I was going to school for business management. And the idea of me going to school for business management was I was going to take over my grandfather's businesses. He had 2 restaurants and a landscaping company. And he had, he passed away, but he had 3 daughters. And so the idea was for each daughter to take over a company. And then I was going to oversee the companies and make sure everybody was compensated properly, taken care of, and kind of just be the overseer. Unfortunately, he had an incredibly major stroke, lost his ability to speak, all the mobility on the left side of his body. And to make a long story short, we pretty much lost everything. Had to sell the businesses just to keep him going. And so what I thought I was going to do kind of blew up in flames. I've always been a numbers guy. I love the world of finance. I tell my clients I solve for why, literal why and the why, W-H-Y. So it just kind of was almost a natural fit to get into the world of financial planning and to help the small business owner. With the lack of planning on my grandfather's side truly affected multi-generations. You look at it, affected his daughters, affected his grandchildren, and then it ultimately also, could affected his great-grandchildren. So the desire to help the small business owner understand the importance of putting together a plan, talking with the employees to make sure whatever their goals are, they had a plan for that as well. It just kind of spurred this whole thing off, and pretty much changed my degree, which wasn't really much, going for business management finance. So it was only just a few different classes. And then once I graduated, I started this practice. So at the end of this month, it'll be 18 years that I've been doing this, and I absolutely love it. It's something that it's a challenge. I tell my prospective clients and my clients that you are one of a kind. There's never going to be, there'll be another Sam Reeve ever again. And so your financial plan and your financial goals should also be one of a kind. So yeah, it's been a fun ride. It's been interesting. I've had a few different weird recessions, some unusual ones, and but nonetheless, it's been a great experience, and I truly love what I do. I feel like God has placed me to do this, and it's been a great time.
Well, it's so important. I mean, just your story just now highlights the important reason why we're talking today. I mean, so every business owner out there or leader in a company knows that, hey, we have some of those people that are just our expert contributors, our top performers, those key employees that we're really concerned about to show up every day, that move the needle for the organization. But one thing that we can't control as leaders is a catastrophe, something that happens in that individual's life that disrupts things, that takes them off track. And of course, when individuals are off track, they're not going to be performing at work. The actual business itself suffers, and our clients suffer, and so forth. So I think it's critically important for us as reward professionals out there to understand that this risk exists, and for us to really ensure that we want to continue to attract the best people, retain our top talent, and motivate people overall. We need to think about their financial security and ensure that especially during these tough times, we're giving relief to people so that they understand, how to navigate life in these uncertainties that pop up. So, Eddie, in your experience with working with companies over the years, what are ways that companies have worked with you to help the financial acumen of their people, and also shore up the risks that they face as business owners?
I think first and foremost, it's peace of mind. Creating a peace of mind with the employee is, in my opinion, incredibly critical. When they are peace of mind, they're going to be more efficient in their work. They're going to want to show up to work. They're going to want to do good. They're going to want to outperform. And how do we get to that peace of mind is kind of the main part. you can do a multitude of things. I've done where I do work site discussions with employees. We'll go and we'll sit down with a group of them, do a Q&A, discuss, what does it take in order for them to get a peace of mind, discuss, the work benefits and how work benefits can also help them, but then also how other additional type of planning, defining their goals. And then once they have their goals defined, creating a plan to get to those goals, and kind of cover it all, cover catastrophic events, the what ifs, the why, and going over those things helps that the employee have that peace of mind, and with the peace of mind, I believe that they actually will perform.
So many companies, they'll say, "Oh, we offer a 401k with a match, and we have full benefits," and then they sort of stop there. So how do you kind of get them to change their thinking that they need to be a little bit more proactive and really look at
yeah.
It's not just enough to offer these programs.
Yeah, that's a great question and statement. It's interesting. They I have a 401k, I'm set. Well, once you start going into the details of how these 401ks work, or work, we'll call them work sponsored plans.
Right.
Once you get into those and you start explaining to them, well, you really can't touch it till you're almost 60. I understand when you do touch it, it's considered taxable income unless you have a Roth. Even if that's the case, while you're employed, the only way to get to it would be a loan. So you're lending against it. And once you start getting into, some of the specifics of how those work sponsored plans work, it's almost like the light bulb naturally goes off, because then the next question usually is, well, what do I do next? What can I do to help me? And so we'll go over the planning of, creating a foundation, and in the foundation, you're covering, your basic insurance, your life insurance, your disability, long-term care, health insurance, emergency savings, making sure you have your trust and wills in place. So you're creating a foundation within someone's plan. And then from there, you can discuss additional, what we would consider and call non-qualified assets, the type of savings plans you can do outside of work. Depending on their goals, what they're trying to achieve, will dictate timeframes and products. And it's really incredible on how, when you tell people your 401k is going to be taxed, and then they kind of look at you like, well, what do you mean it's going to be taxed? Well, look at these tax rates. And I always carry the most up-to-date tax table, and it's like, okay, well, let's see here. What do you want your income to be? You want it to be 80,000. Okay, well, that's the tax rate of 22%. So understand that every single dollar you put out, 22 cents on that dollar is going to go to tax. That's a big fee on your money. Taxes are fees. So once you kind of start showing people, the economic impact, the tax impact on their assets, it almost creates a self-motivation of doing something additional.
Right. And I think that's one of the biggest thing as a comp practitioner. One of the first things that we do when we go into an organization, and we think about the demographics of that particular organization. Now, what are most of the people, what are they mostly concerned about? If depending on the mix or the location or the culture of a company, it can be things from, paying off student debt to taking care of their elder loved ones, or even pet insurance, right? So it can be a variety of different things. So I think that the most important thing is when we look is first understand the demographics and the desires of the organization, what they're looking for, what's top of mind, and then putting in a good education program that first helps them identify and take advantage of what the company has to offer at that point, maximizing those pieces in the right sequence that gives them the best value. And so when you think about all that typically companies have of value there, I mean, that in the US, we have the traditional 401k and ESPP plan, health savings accounts. You were talking a little bit about deferred compensation, different things like this that might exist. What is the typical sequence that you recommend people to maximize as they go through those benefits?
Well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you're, the pet insurance idea. It's like, what is most important to them? And then when you're able to define what's most important to them, then you plan accordingly for that individual. Yeah, absolutely. Work benefits are a no-brainer in my opinion. I like to look at myself as kind of like a quarterback within the plan for my clients. And we need a wide receiver, we need some linemen, we need some running backs, in order to get the ball to the goal, right, or to the end zone. So with that being said, it's okay. Well, what's most important to you? Okay, well, you're eligible for a 401k. If they're going to match you 3-5%, it's a no-brainer. You need to put at least what they're matching. I mean, that's 100% return on your investment. I put $1 and they're going to match me $1. I'm at $2 without even any risk. That's a no-brainer. Health insurance is also, usually through work. It's a lot cheaper than going on the private market. You can save yourself quite a bit on the premium. The same with like your group life insurance. You mentioned HSA. It's a great way to help offset the costs of your deductibles and your copays. So first and foremost, within the work environment itself, specifically, it's are you taking full advantage of all of your company's benefits? And if you are not, why? And people will explain, well, I don't need the legal benefits. Okay, well, in my chart here, you don't have a trust or will. Seems like you could use those legal benefits unless you want to pay a lawyer $3,000. Well, I don't have a family, so I don't really need health insurance. Well, what happens if you fall and break your hip? So it's incredibly important to explain to them the importance of work site benefits. And then from there, it's then defining what they're trying to accomplish. My parents are elderly. I need to start taking care of them. It's going to cost me X. Okay, well, do you want to spend $1,500 a month right at the very end? Or do you want to start putting aside $600 now to where then you can have that $1,500 a month to take care of them as they do get older? So it's really maximizing work and then finding out what's most important and then creating a legitimate, proper financial plan that gives them that peace of mind.
Another thing is we look at customizing things. I mean, you mentioned everybody has their own specific needs and so forth, but I think that a lot of young professionals out there, they fail to do the proper planning. And because, just like, I mean, I remember those days. I mean, you're living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, if you could afford to put money aside, that's a yeah, that's
the victory in itself, man.
I was able to save a little money this month or whatever, that feels good. But then but there's other things that need to be taken into play. Like for instance, people of course want to grow their career and they want to aspire, and maybe their thought is they want to be an executive by the time that they're 35, 40, whatever that number is for them. And as they start thinking about this ahead of time, I mean, you can put a plan, a whole path in place of how to take best advantage in the think ahead. Another thing is like, okay, well, I want to I plan on having my family. I haven't really saved a lot of money for my child's education. Perhaps there's different ways I can do that when I'm older. And so how do you encourage people to, get out of the muck and think ahead a little bit? I mean, it seems to be pretty tough.
Yeah. So my grandfather was a very influential person in my life. I spent a lot of time with him, and even though he wasn't the most formally educated man, he always had some incredible, one-liners. And, understand this guy came off the boat from Italy, so had a super incredibly thick Italian accent. And he always told me, younger man, you are never too good for no one. And that really resonated with me. For example, I was meeting with a young man the other week, and he's like, man, we paid all of our bills. I'm so excited. I couldn't afford someone like you. or I don't have enough money to put aside to work with someone like you. And I told him that. And it's like, I don't care if you're worth a zero or you're worth $100 million. We eat the same, we go to the bathroom the same, we sleep, so no one's different. And so it's just kind of putting it at ease, like, okay, take the judgment out. And if someone wants to work with you, they're going to work with you. And it's here's a balance sheet. Look at what your budget is. This is your first step. Oh, you only got 20 extra bucks a month. All right. Well, we're at a starting point. Take the 20 bucks, put it to the side where you don't want to touch it. It's gonna be a pain in the neck to touch it. And then slowly kind of work through that process. It may take a year. It may take 2 years. It may take 1 month. It doesn't matter. You have to start somewhere. Wow, there's a saying I can't remember, but something along the lines of if you fail to plan, then your plan's going to fail because you don't have a plan. So even though you may feel like you're only scraping by, starting to define your goals and then taking step by step, you can't go from 0 to 100 without going 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you have to start somewhere somehow. Well, the longer you wait, it's going to be more difficult to start down the road. So it's yeah, absolutely. Get the young professionals who are whether they're motivated, and get them in front of someone to start planning out their goals. Your example you gave about wanting to become an executive. Okay, well, how are you going to get there? You're just going to work hard. Why don't you express this to your boss? Hey, you know what? In 5 years, I want to be in this position. How can I get there? People inherently want to help. We get such joy out of watching people succeed. We get such joy out of helping someone do better, so take advantage of the resources around you. And if someone doesn't want to help, someone will want to help, move on and find that person who's going to want to give you a hand, because having that plan will get you where you need to go.
What I find right now is as in my job, I create programs, I roll these programs out and so forth. And I think about it a lot from the company side and the employee side, but sometimes these things need to be continually communicated, continually educated. And there needs to be a cadence that companies put in place. Do you see this as the same thing on the financial side? I mean, I think that most of us know that we're supposed to do an annual check-in on our finances and things. But what is the best way to ensure that people remain financially healthy as an employee?
Yeah, I think one is trying to be disciplined. Running by the seat of your pants is a very difficult thing to do. So discipline is one. You have your goal, try your best to be disciplined. Now, I understand that, 1 year may be a great year and the next year may not be so well, so you may not be able to do what you were doing the year prior, but don't lose focus of said goal, and so as you are disciplined through your plan, and you got to revisit it. Sometimes people revisit it quarterly, semi-annually, annually, depends on how automatic things get. But yeah, I really feel like if you're disciplined, it's important enough. You will continue to revisit your finances, revisit where the balance of your portfolio is, reach out to said advisor. Hey, you know what? I know it's a little before a year, but I got some questions. My wife and I, we revisit our plan every year, and sometimes it's a couple times a year, depending on how things are going. Ain't nothing wrong with that. It's keeping us focused and disciplined. What our short-term goals are, midterm goals, and our long-term goals.
I think people are afraid. I'm not sure why, maybe because it starts too late, and then maybe there should be more financial education training, in the school systems, which seems to ignore a lot of it. But there seems to be this fear, so people just sort of put it off till later, and then often they find it's way too late.
Yeah, that's it's kind of like stick your head in the sand. The what is it? ostrich type idea, you know.
Right.
I'm just gonna ignore it, I'm gonna ignore it, I'm gonna ignore it. And
Yeah.
and someone's screaming, hey, don't ignore it, you know, the cheetah's coming after you. And there's a sense of, in my experiences, that I would say shame, you know, is something that some people kind of are afraid, you know, they feel bad. Oh, I should have done this earlier. Well, shoulda, coulda, woulda. It doesn't matter. You're here now. So
Gotta
now
start.
that you're here now, let's start something now. You know,
Mhm.
don't be embarrassed that you didn't start saving till you were 40. Don't be embarrassed if, you know, you've gone, you know, 10 years and your kids are 8 and 9, you never got a trust and will. Don't worry about the past. You know, your mental state is here now. So let's focus on the now and just press on. You know, stay accountable. You know, a good advisor will make sure that you're accountable. You know, it'll be like, hey, we talked about this, had a conversation with a client yesterday, you know, and I was like, hey man, I've been telling you to do this for now 2 years. It still hasn't changed. I'm still telling you to keep doing this, you know.
Right.
Sam,
Sam, we can't hear you, Sam.
Sorry about that. So last year and the year before, we were in a situation where we're in an environment where the employment market was hot. You know, there's people are jumping around from job to job and trying to upgrade their positions, make more money, and so forth. And then came the inflation, right? A significant amount of inflation that has happened over the past a year and a half, and now we're starting to see maybe that's starting to tick down a little bit. But how has this been impacting your clients, the market environment? What is top of mind right now for employees that are out there?
Yeah, I mean, inflation has definitely has hit a lot of people. There's no denying that. I mean, you know, when eggs, when you're trying to put food on the table and food is costing you 2-3 times as much as it normally does, it definitely hurts. You know, it's just reprioritizing. You know, what's super important right now. You know, how are you doing putting food on the table? You know, we're doing okay. All right. You know, well, you know what? You know, I found that when people are in the process of their plan, they stay dedicated to it. You know, they'll be like, you know what? I'm just not going to go out to eat as much. You know, I'm not going to go to that movie. You know, they cut back in kind of the things that are not as important. You know, because I've noticed that even though, you know, things are, you know, it's like, okay, well, we're not taking the kids to mini golf. We're going to do game night at home. You know, so that has kind of like changed. So even though they're, you know, having less disposable income, they reprioritize of what is most important. And, you know, they know, at least, you know, I'm a huge educator on things. So we know we're in a volatile market, right? The market it's been up, it's been down, it's all over the place, man. But they also know that, well, as I'm putting money away, I am buying shares. I'm dollar cost averaging. I'm buying shares at different values. So we're not at the top of the market. So it's like, well, I could take advantage of this volatile market right now. In that sense of things. So it's really kind of, you know, sitting back down, getting a hold of your advisor and being like, hey, I need to see, you know, my goals have changed. And if they've changed, okay, well, we need to tweak your plan. I don't believe a financial plan should be black and white. A financial plan is gray, and it's gray because life happens. And when life happens, you need to be able to make that tweak. And as you make that adjustment, you know, people, again, they get that new peace of mind again, you know, a little panic. And then it's like, okay, revisit your plan. We can make a change here. We can make a change here. You know, let's keep pressing on.
Yeah, good advice. Let's jump over to the employer side a bit. I mean, right now there's companies that are out there, small businesses that have, you know, have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different people, and that is really critical. If they lose one person, you know, that could put them out of business. And so they're very concerned. And then during a time right now, there's a lot of companies in cost constraints due to the economy. They're worried about losing their best people. what are some of the mechanisms you're seeing out there that are helping companies, these small businesses, retain their people in times of difficult budgets or limited budgets?
First and foremost, it's meeting with that employee and finding out what's most important to that employee.
Totally agree.
And once you find out what is most important to that employee, the goal then for the employer would be to try to help them achieve that. I mean, there's multiple programs out there that you can do to help provide additional compensation. There's discriminatory plans. But what if it's like, you have an elderly parent that you need to take care of? Well, if that's their number one important thing, if the employer maybe helps set them up with, a caregiver, maybe you're not paying them, but you can pay the caregiver to help take care of that parent. Something as simple as that, it's really kind of figuring out what is the most important thing to that employee in order to try to keep them. You can write up agreements. Hey, we're going to do this for you, but if we do this, we need you to stay on board for the next handful of years. If you leave, right, you're going to have to, pay back, or, if we did a deferred comp plan of some sort, we're going to keep this deferred comp if you leave early, so we can bring on a new person and train them, because, you being our number one sales guy, taking all those sales is going to really hurt our company. So we need to train someone new, and that's going to take us 6 months to a year, and we can't have that, hurt our bottom line. So you can do some things like golden handcuffs, executive bonus, key man type plans that can kind of keep that employee around, but also keep them additional compensation if that's what's most important to them.
Yeah, I think the big thing there is just, when companies find themselves in a situation like that, like you mentioned, I think the most important thing they need to do is start talking about it. As you mentioned, it's so many times when people get in a tough spot, they clam up, they don't talk, and they don't communicate about the needs and of people. And so what happens in lack of communication instills fear, right?
And then when you have fear, that they're going to start looking elsewhere,
right?
And then they're just going to leave you,
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate when that does happen. So if you can kind of nip it in the bud immediately, and there's something to be said about feeling belonged and feeling important. We all kind of crave some sort of importance at the work we do. Well, if the employee is just kind of going through the motions and there's really no gratitude shown, sometimes a simple thank you is all it requires.
No kidding.
But it's really kind of seeing what they're trying to achieve, and you being the employer, showing them that you want to help them get there as well.
Right. And the other piece that you mentioned as well is another failing of human nature is that when things get tough, that we seem to want to bear down and almost hibernate and wait for it to pass. And a lot of about what really needs to take place is action and some sort of action to help improve the situation. And what you just mentioned, as far as thinking about retention strategies, doing some, a key man plan, or looking at a deferred comp that's going to help retain your people, or also preserve money in the bank as a risk management strategy if you need to hire that new person. Thinking about these different strategies is what should happen during these down times. And so I think it's super important for our leaders out there that are listening, is there's two things, have conversations with your people and have conversations with your advisors about what should we do to make us more resilient and more agile to these type of situations, so that we can limit some of our risk.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of times, with small companies and startups, you hear, well, we just can't afford that. We can't compete with the bigger companies. How do you get over those hurdles with them? And they're saying their budget's so tight, that they really can't offer much more than the salary right now.
Yeah. So with small businesses, it's fascinating, because people who work for the small business, they love feeling part of a project that they have some sort of say in, imagine working at like, a Home Depot, and, how much of a say do you really have compared if you were working for a smaller, say, home goods store, and you can bring up an idea to the owner. You can't do that at a Home Depot, so that type of an belonging really carries a lot of weight. So when they do say things like, well, yeah, we're really tight on budget, we can't really provide bonuses this year. Okay, fair enough. Why don't you do a luncheon? Why don't you do, maybe a dinner after work? Create, maybe do like a family picnic in the park. Something, and it doesn't cost a lot, but it's something they can do to just kind of allow the employees to feel like they're part of something. My majority of my experience with small business owners is the employees just want to feel like they're part of the company, because that's why they work for the small business. But then, there's also that frank conversation with the employer. Hey, man, like, I know times are tight. What if times get tighter? What are we doing right now for those things? You need to start building additional assets for when things get even tighter, because you may think things are bad now, but we've seen throughout the history of entrepreneurship, things can get worse. They can also get a lot better. So by just having that defeatist attitude is also not helpful. The idea of being proactive, not reactive, is a big conversation that I have with the employers part of it. Not only giving the sense of belonging to the employees, but also you got to be proactive in your plan. You're not in business to be in business a month from now. You're in business to be in business 10, 15, 20 years. And if you're remaining a small business, it's then to give it to your children and then to your children's children. Something that is incredibly important to families, to be able to have that type of asset. So that's kind of why.
Also, aren't there tax benefits to offering some of these programs too?
Yes, absolutely. When you look, and they can be structured however they want to make it tax advantage for them. It could be a tax deduction for the business owner. The asset could grow tax deferred, and then they can use those monies to train, and that's also a business cost. So there is a lot of tax advantages for one, but then also these assets can be held to where they don't so much reflect on the company's balance sheet. It's just an additional asset. So it's like, imagine owning a building and then you own another building, right? You may have $500,000 in equity in that building, but that doesn't reflect your cash flow. That's just an asset, kind of the same thing. So yeah, that's an excellent point.
One thing that I often wonder about is that we know of a lot of the traditional offerings, retirement offerings and benefit offerings that companies provide and so forth. But then we hear that some ancillary like insurance products and so forth that can deliver potentially deliver greater impact with less risk or better features. Now, I see these come and go over time, but what is your impression? What is the hot product out there right now that companies are thinking about adding on to their plans?
One of the staple products for a solid 150 years is actually cash value life insurance. It's really mind-blowing on how that type of product priced and done properly can be quite the benefit to the company, to the employee. It's not just something simply paying a premium and getting a death benefit. It's paying money into a policy that grows. Money grows in it. So imagine it's like a savings account and it grows within there. And with that, say it's like a key man insurance policy, your employee, top sales executive passes away, company gets a tax-free death benefit. They get that tax-free death benefit to train a new employee. They can also use that to say, half of it can go to the company, half of it can go to the family. Thank you for your service. You were an amazing employee. This is how we want to send you off because we had a premature passing. Also, hey, you stuck with us for the 15 years we asked you to. There's now $250,000 in this cash value policy. Here you go. Enjoy it. So that's really a product a lot of product specific that a lot of entrepreneurials really like to have, because it creates security, it creates a growth in money, and it's a way to keep the key employees. And with that, it's 100% discriminatory plan. So you can pick and choose who you want to be part of these type of programs. You know, say you've got 50 employees, but you've really only, you know, put maybe 2 or 3 that if they leave, there's going to be a huge hit to your cash flow. It's a great way to kind of like say, hey, I'm going to keep you on for the next handful of years. And if you stay here to the maturity of this agreement that we have drafted, then this is yours.
Great. Thank you for that, Eddie.
Mhm.
So now when we think about the future and, you know, the future of, you know, how we provide benefits and financial benefits to our employees and so forth, what do you see changing in the next 5 to 10 years? Do you see anything on the horizon of
Changing? Like, no, I mean, you know, you're gonna have a lot of AI coming in. I think AI is gonna kind of make an impact on, you know, certain programs and softwares. You know, for example, GM, you know, put a huge, you know, package together to try to like get rid of $2 billion in payroll. I have a client of mine I have a handful of clients who work with them in the IT department, and they're like, man, some of them took it, some of them didn't, and it was depending on their position, because they're like, AI is going to replace my job. You know, that's something to consider. So whether, you know, if that's, I think that's probably the biggest move that could be happening over the next handful of years would be the impact of AI within the work environment.
Mhm. And is there risk mitigation that employees can take in those areas? I mean, let's say, I mean, I know there's always training and development, and you know, of course, knowing how to leverage AI and so forth. But is there AI that is being woven into certain financial packages that could provide benefit to employees that you're aware of?
Not yet. It's so new, and I think the programming is showing some glitches in it.
Mhm.
So, you know, the AI is only as good as the programmer, right? You know,
Yeah.
so it can't, you know, and when we as humans, we just have a way of kind of always desiring to think outside the box, and AI kind of is stuck in the box of the programmer. So I see AI affecting things as strictly more of like a software thing. Hey, we need you to solve this. But I don't see it really, you know, creating anything new. You know, it's you know, hey, it's like the robotic arms and building a car, right? You know, like some of the car line. You know, when Henry Ford, everyone was assembling parts, right? And then we went from people assembling the parts, and now like some robotics assembling some other parts. But yet humans are still doing other parts of that. So I feel like it would be something along those lines, but really a great impact. There's still a lot of unknown in that realm right now.
Yeah. You know, the other thing that I kind of worry about and is the demographics of, you know, where the economy is going for. I mean, right now in the U.S., the demographics are, you know, I mean, we're not growing. Our population is not growing anymore. That it's very, as a matter of fact, it's maybe shrinking a little bit or holding steady. But there's other countries that we rely upon to deliver us goods and services where they're in a terrible situation. You know, for instance, China, I mean, their population is shrinking fast. You know, Japan has been shrinking fast forever. I mean, but these are a lot of Germany, Europe, they're shrinking. And so they're going to have harder times finding people and providing goods and services. How should Americans in the United States and employees be preparing for this? I mean, is there something that they can do on a financial side to shore things up, or is there any type of words of wisdom, I guess you could say?
Have children. Yeah, I mean, this has been a concern for a long time now. I know we've been talking about Japan and Germany for a decade and a half.
Yeah.
And so, kind of what Japan, well, and China as well. Like China's another prime example. What China started doing was they started bringing workers from other countries who were just producing children and producing humans.
No, wow.
It's definitely a concern. But at the same time, our work is going to more automation. So there's I think we'll be okay for a little while because of our jobs, some jobs becoming more automated. So even though as a workforce kind of shrinks a little bit, having things automated kind of helps with that shrinking. I think we're kind of in this spot where we can watch us develop over a little while. But really it'll be lessening the ropes of immigration, bringing people in and not just trying to, the US has an issue with, our immigration policies. And I don't want to try to get political in any type of realm, but it's the immigration in this country is very difficult. And so we're taking the cream of the crop from other countries. So we're taking the best of the best from other countries. Well, how are we lifting them up? We got to look at these things as win-win. When you get 10,000 pages of immigration policy, it's not like it was in the 50s when my family came here. My family came here in the 50s on a boat from Italy. Literally went to Ellis Island, checked in, came right on in. A year later, they were citizens. Now we're looking at a process of 7, 8, 9 years, and we got all these restrictions on their visas. We need to lessen that up. It's becoming easier to just kind of walk across. And the problem with that is, it's a slavery system. These people don't have social security numbers, so they don't get any of the benefits of being a US citizen. And so they're just paying taxes and not getting any benefits out of it. So I think really the idea of having children would be very helpful. And then also kind of lessening our immigration policy to encourage people to come here and not have them, run scared. When you're an illegal, you're running scared. Well, okay. Well, how can we change this? Let's make it less costly. And, I mean, we live in a phenomenal place, and we're the freest we've ever been before as an entire world. It's a great avenue to help grow an economy and help grow your population.
Yeah, so I'm sure it's clear to say that business leaders out there should do what they can to influence their local congressmen and so forth to have more business-centric laws being passed. But and also, I kind of brought that question up because we were just talking about AI, and you mentioned increasing productivity and automation. These are things that could potentially help us remain at the financial levels that we've seen in the past. Hopefully, let's hope that we can all be there. Well, great. It was such a pleasure to have you on, Eddie, and kind of to go through all this information of how to ensure that we're educating our people, making sure that they're prepared. We're thinking about of our employees in a very talent-centric way. And I think that a lot of that is just come full circle where we started. Is anybody can come under financial crisis, and it can happen to our best people at any time. And so, if we really want to make sure that we're doing the best for our people as leaders, and also our customers in reducing business interruption, ensuring that our people are financially educated, ensuring that they know of those important vehicles out there to secure their resilience and make them to mitigate risk in their lives, will make us all more successful. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So, and Eddie, if people that have questions and they want to learn more, I mean, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, super easy. They can go to my website, diazstrategies.com, just like it is. My last name, DIAZ strategies.com. Shoot me you can, my contact info is on there. You can shoot me an email, whatever is easiest for you. And normally I get back within one business day. And yeah, any other kind of questions whatsoever, I'm just here. I'm just here to help. Like I said at the beginning of this, I love doing this stuff. It's one of the reasons I feel like why I am here, and it's just, it gives me a reason to work this bad boy, you know. So
That's right. That's right. Well, it's been a pleasure, Eddie. Thank you so much.
yeah, Sam, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate this. Thank you, guys.
You bet.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yep,
See
you
you
too.
everybody
Okay.
next week.
Yeah, we'll see you.
Bye.
All right. Bye, everyone.